And we continue to ask the experts as we continue to watch the major news stories of the day. We got that magnitude 6+ earthquake, and remember, California time is hours behind us, so, there's still some stuff they've got to find over there. And it's now Tropical Storm Cristobal. You'll be hearing all about that over the next several days. Probably will become a hurricane, according to the prognosticators. This is Law 2020. Welcome to the show. Law 2020 live on this Sunday, and we feature Wade Boyette of the BCN Law Firm. BCN Law Firm, Boyette, Cummins, and Nalos, and they've got offices now in Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and tomorrow morning, the official opening of the office in the Villages on Highway 466. Now, one phone number does it all for these guys, 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020. And the one thing that you'll really love about this law firm is not only are they there to represent you legally, but everywhere you go in Central Florida, no matter what the cause is, if it's a good civic cause, you will find these guys and the gals from the law firm involved in that fundraiser. You talk about community-oriented, they're always out among the community. So Wade Boyette is with us today, and we're taking your calls right now at 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696, or text us at 21232, 21232. What is on Wade Boyette's mind today? Well, there are a lot of you who went through the downfall of the economy, and maybe through no fault of your own, you couldn't afford that house anymore. You couldn't afford to make the payments. You contacted the bank. They maybe offered you sort of a temporary modification. Remember those conversations where they'd say, yeah, for the next 6 months, just make this payment, and then we'll see how it goes. But meanwhile, the guys across the hall in Foreclosureville were already starting the wheels toward your foreclosure. That seemed to be just a bad dream of the past. And now you've gotten yourself back on track. You got yourself new living arrangements, whether it be renting or leasing. You maybe even are past the years where you're buying again. Well, there's still something up there haunting. And what is that, Wade Boyette?
Well, recently, and I've seen an upspike in deficiency judgment suits. And what I mean by that, a lot of my homeowners who did not short sell their property or who did not defend their foreclosure and who went through a foreclosure or who did a deed in lieu are finding that they're being sued again, and they're being sued for this deficiency amount, the difference between what they owed the bank and what their house was worth at the day of the foreclosure sale.
So a lot of people probably, when the foreclosure was finalized and at the end of the day, they probably loosened their collar, hugged their wife or their significant other, went and had a beer, and said, well, that's all behind us, it's all over. But it wasn't all over.
No, and most people, that once their house has been foreclosed on, they've moved on. A lot of times they've actually gotten back in the market, bought a new house, their credit score's back up. They've been living a year, 2, 3, doing things the right way, and then they get this process server serving them another lawsuit for this deficiency. And now, they're having to deal with an issue that they thought were behind them all over again.
So, one, they're facing something that maybe lurked in their mind if they were knowledgeable of this. But to some people, is this taking them broadside? They had no idea this could come back to catch up with them later?
Absolutely. A lot of the clients that are coming into our office thought this was behind them. They thought, once they were foreclosed on, if they hadn't heard from the bank in a relatively short period of time, and until June of 2013, banks had the right to seek this deficiency for a 5-year period. There was a 5-year statute of limitations. They did shorten that last year to a 1-year statute of limitations, and what that means is now groups like Dick O'Neill out of Texas are hiring Florida law firms and out there aggressively trying to recoup money for Fannie Mae.
Wow. So all of a sudden you get somebody that may call you or drop by your offices in Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, or starting tomorrow, the Villages on 466, and they're liable to say, I don't understand this. Wait, I got this summons here. I got this letter, and now they're starting to call my house. my foreclosure's over. What does this mean? And you have to be the bearer of bad news.
Right. They're telling me, I'm having this company call me, or I'm getting this lawsuit, and it's by someone I never did business with. I didn't, it wasn't the bank that I borrowed the money or the lender I borrowed the money from. Now I've got this new company. They're suing me for this deficiency. What do I have to do?
So if somebody gets a letter, a phone call, anything, and they don't recognize the name, that doesn't mean that it's not a legitimate attempt to collect a debt, as they say to you when they call you on the phone.
Absolutely. What I'm seeing a lot of times, and this is what the banks have really been aggressive doing, a lot of my clients, unfortunately, when they go through bad times, they want a fresh start. And the way they get a fresh start is some of them move out of Florida. They'll go move to a different state, start their life over. And so they're getting served here in Florida, or getting publication of notice, which they never actually get served, and they have 20 days to respond. They don't respond. The bank gets the judgment against them. And now the next thing that happens is a collection company in the state that they live in is pursuing them.
Let me bounce off something else. What happens to the person, and I really am a lost territory here, but you may be having people out there that are thinking, all right, well, Wade, I declared bankruptcy. I included the house. I included everything. Then there was the settlement. The foreclosure went through. I lost everything. I walked away. Does my foreclosure not cover this deficiency?
The bankruptcy would. Yeah, any client who did file bankruptcy, and bankruptcy, unless you reaffirm the debt of your house, if you included that debt in the bankruptcy, game over for the bank. They cannot seek a deficiency.
Okay.
It's the clients who didn't file bankruptcy.
However, we've seen a lot of miscommunication. Let me give the benefit of the doubt to the big monster mega banks. Right. We've seen a little miscommunication along the line. Does that mean that some of these people may not get served?
They have to get served for them to be sued for the deficiency.
Yeah.
The problem is, before the market crash, it wasn't common for banks to seek deficiencies.
Right.
Now the banks, with Fannie Mae trying to recoup the $2 billion of losses that they had in this crash, they're out trying to do anything they can to recoup some of the money against homeowners. And so they're aggressively, because of the statute of limitations being shortened, they're aggressively currently trying to get these deficiencies.
So let's say, and I know there's going to be people out there that just say, I don't know who Dick O'Neill is. I don't know who this law firm from Tampa is. Throw that thing away and let's just go on and go to dinner. Are they going to have their bank account seized or their payroll seized or lose their car or what? I don't understand.
Or all of the above, depending on
man.
how their assets are titled, the amount of the deficiency. Usually it's, what do I do? Someone's trying to garnish my wages at work. It's those types of things. And that's when they're in. And once the deficiency is entered, our only option then is either negotiate or bankruptcy. And so we need to address that issue. Once you get served for the deficiency, there are many defenses you can raise. I mean, we can even hopefully, if we can raise the right arguments, open the foreclosure back up. And if we can open the foreclosure back up, we can even attack the foreclosure.
Wow. So in other words, it's not too late to seek remedy.
Correct.
So, see, my line of thinking always is, Wade, and I'm sure you get a lot of people in your office that come in and you close the door and they're looking at you and they say, but it's a monster mega bank. It's a giant firm now joining them out of Texas, which is an internationally known firm that evidently bought up these debts.
Right.
What am I going to do? They got all the cards. Well, do they?
They don't have all the cards. The nice thing is they have to follow protocol, and the laws are not extremely clear, but there is some clear procedures that they have to follow. There are some things that the homeowner has rights, the borrower has rights, and one of the things that we're seeing that other law firms and our law firm is doing to attack these lawsuits by Dick O'Neill is who has proper standing to bring this suit. Does Dick O'Neill or the group out of Tampa have the proper standing, or is it the bank that loaned you the money? Is it the original lender? And if we can win on that standing issue, then the lawsuit's going to be dropped. The original lender is going to have to bring the action. They're going to have to reopen the foreclosure to bring the deficiency action, and that opens the door for us to attack them in several ways.
Now, let me go back to the the process that these companies might be using, because you referred to something earlier that really caught me left-handed, and that is, all right, let's say the person lost their home in Florida and they moved on to Kansas City. Well, do they have to be served in person in Kansas City or just show up on a public notice in a legal document like the Orlando Sentinel?
Just has to be public notice. They have to make a good faith effort to serve the person in person. But once they do that, and, you know, good faith effort is, you know, we can define that however we want to define it. After they've made the effort, then they can publish. And once they publish, you know, your right to defend that lawsuit ends in 20 days and you're done.
Okay, let me ask you this. You've had a foreclosure in the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years. You don't know whether this is applying to you or not. You may not even know if there was a real deficiency or not, because frankly you were running away from this and just trying to start your life over again, right, doing everything but changing your last name. Should anybody that's been through a foreclosure in the past 6 or 8 years at least make a courtesy call to an attorney at law to say, I don't know, but I want to have my ducks in a row so I don't get caught blind with my pants down?
Yeah, what I would do at least is either contact an attorney or, you know, look and see what the statute of limitations period as it applies to you is. Is it under the old 5 years or is it 1 year? And if it's 1 year, then that 1 year period is, you know, for most homeowners is starting to expire unless it's a new foreclosure. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you the situation, Rob, where I see that's really troubling. I've had a lot of situations where the person to borrow the money wasn't the one that the bank was going after. It was mom and dad or another family member who was gracious enough to guarantee the loan. They never borrowed the money. All they did was sign as a guarantor. The home gets foreclosed on. Now there's the deficiency suit. Well, they're going to sue everyone who signed or guaranteed the note. Now, a person who wasn't even an owner of the home is getting sued for the deficiency suit, and that person has probably moved on. You know, they're living their life. Their financial situation is pretty secure, and they have to deal with this issue.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question now. We'll pose the question, and we'll pick it up after the break, and that is, when does the clock start? On the 5 years before and the 1 year now, what triggers that clock to begin when you're looking at, has the statute of limitations ended? Does it end with the foreclosure filing, the settlement, or the bank eventually selling that home to establish a deficiency? When does the clock start on the big scoreboard up there in House Heaven? We will be back. This is Law 2020 featuring Wade Boyette right here, noon every Sunday on News 96.5. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are a little over 4 minutes before news, traffic, and weather as we keep our eye on that earthquake in California and on Tropical Storm Cristobal, which has now been christened a tropical storm. Wade Boyette in studio. This is called Law 2020 by the BCN Law Firm. During the week, BCN Law Firm is 855-LAW-2020. Attorneys there that can handle just about anything. Another number for them, 352-394-2103. That's 352-394-2103. Offices in Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and now starting in the morning at 9 o'clock sharp, I guess, it's going to be the office right there on Highway 466 for all of those of you in the villages, Spruce Creek, all those areas up there, Wildwood, Leesburg, Ocala, got you serviced right there. Okay, we're talking about new things and deficiency judgments, and we talked about the fact that there's a new company that you've been hearing about today that is actually involved in going out and trying to collect every kind of deficiency judgment they can post-foreclosure. Now, Wade was talking about this in the first segment of the show, and he brought up the fact that, again, one of the things you want to look at is when your foreclosure happened and the statute of limitations. There was a 5-year rule, then it was reduced to a 1-year rule. And so we'll get those dates out of the way, but also the question remains, when does the clock start on the deficiency clock on the 5 years and the 1 year? So, Wade, you're the expert in all this. When does that clock start?
From the sale date, after you get the default judgment and the sale date, after June 1st of 2013, the 1-year statute of limitations starts.
Okay, so let's say you've got this person out there, and they've just been, and you've talked to them. These people are still riding this wave. They're making jokes at dinner parties. Yeah, I've been in my house 6 years, haven't made a payment. I don't know. The bank keeps calling. People keep doing this and that, but nobody's really doing anything yet. Well, are they just putting off the inevitable, and one of these days it's all going to come crashing down on their head?
Yeah, sometimes that will backfire on you, because one thing that doesn't stop running is the interest charges. The interest is continuing to accrue, and now it's accruing at the default rate of interest. So I've had clients who may have had a $50,000 deficiency judgment, who did think they were beating the system by staying in their house for a year or 2 years. But when the bank sues for the deficiency is $150,000, $200,000 because of the accrued interest. It doesn't take long, clicking at 18% for your deficiency amount to increase. Plus, you're going to add on attorney's fees, late charges. It can get pretty hefty. So actually, the cost of living in that house at the end of the day, if you don't have a way out of the deficiency judgment, can be pretty high.
Now, for the people who didn't listen to the advice that was given out by your law firm and others back in the day, and they just sat down with their friends one day and said, you know what, I'm tired of all this, I'm just going to walk away. They didn't just walk away, did they?
They didn't just walk away. Unfortunately, the bank still has a right to sue you for the deficiency. So your problem hasn't gone away. That also applies for people who did short sales, who did not get the lender to explicitly waive the deficiency, or for individuals who did deed and lose and said, look, the bank took the house back. They took the house back, so obviously I don't owe them any money. Not necessarily the case. So, the deficiency issue arises in both short sales, deed and lieu, foreclosure. It's out there in many situations.
And there's probably people who just don't follow this closely enough because they're too busy being whatever they are. Great electrician, great teacher, great fireman, great policeman, whatever it is. And they're not thinking about the fact that, well, wait a minute, didn't we get a waiver according to the government on the taxes of the differentiation? But that's not forgiving them of the differentiation, right? The deficiency.
That's correct.
The principle's still there.
The principle's still there, and the Internal Revenue Code has nothing to do with the bank's right to seek a deficiency.
Wow. So let's we're going to wrap this up. We're going to take a break, and then we want your phone calls on this. Have you been through a foreclosure? Did you go through a short sale? What is your situation? And do you need to be looking over your shoulder for somebody that's going to walk up to you in a parking lot of your front door and say to you, hi, are you John Smith? I've got these papers for you. Wow. You don't want that. Okay, we will be back. We're taking your calls right now at 855-297-9696. Text us at 21232. News, traffic, weather, all coming up next. Welcome back. The name of the show is Law 2020, brought to you by your friends at the offices of the BCN Law Firm. That's right, BCN Law Firm, with offices Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and now the Villages. You can reach them during the week at 352-394-2103, 352-394-2103, or 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020, just like the song says. Wade Boyette's with us today, and we're talking about this whole new thing that's come up, and you started to hear about it this weekend, and it's new action on the deficiency judgment front. And if you've been through a foreclosure, a short sale, a modification, you need to make sure that you're protected, and burying your head in the sand, as we always say on this and other programs, does not pay the piper. They're going to catch up with you, and you better have some defense, okay? So let's start off this half hour by giving you, a phone number you can call. You don't have to use your real name. This is sort of still kind of a stigma in our society. Gee, I went through a foreclosure, even though you're certainly not alone. There are millions of you out there. 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696. Don't have to use your real name. Just give us your situation and get some advice, and maybe get part of this monkey off your back, okay? So deficiency judgments are now being sought by a company who has entered into the fray, and you're going to start hearing their name more and more and more. They do have Florida legal representation now out of Southwest Florida, and they're going to be contacting people and saying, you owe the money, now let's pay up, okay? This can get a little crazy. So it's not behind you, and for the most part, unless you know your times and your rights. And so besides the term limit and the time limits on this, the statute of limitations, so to speak, the 4 years, 5 years, and the 1 year now, what are some of the other defenses that people might want to find with you?
Well, if you have been served or you are anticipating being served now because the statute, that 1 year statute's coming close, bring whatever paper you receive. You're going to end up getting served by a process server more than likely. And when you do, bring that paperwork in. Let us take a look. Let us look at who's bringing the lawsuit. Is it the proper party that's bringing the lawsuit? Do we have what's called a standing issue? Maybe we can fight them on that grounds. Let's see if there's any way that we can go back up and open up the foreclosure. Let's see if we can attack it on that grounds. You can also, deficiency means that the value of the home wasn't worth the amount of the debt owed. Maybe we can fight valuation. Maybe we can get a good appraiser that can come in and argue that, nope, that home was valued at a lot more than the bank is assuming that it's valued at, or what they sold it for on the courthouse steps, because usually that's at a fire price, at a fire sale price. There's different things that we can do. If there's no way to defend your deficiency, let's say they've already gotten the deficiency judgment, that time period's run, come in and let's look at other options between debt settlement, bankruptcy. Let's see if you have one of the other options that are available out there.
The thing that always bothered me is sometimes a financial institution would foreclose on a person, and maybe it's totally legal and maybe it's totally ethical, but it always rubbed me the wrong way. That ABC loan company forecloses on Tim over there, and then turns up and shows up, and one of their agents shows up at the sale and buys it on behalf of the ABC loan company.
Correct.
Isn't that a conflict of interest?
You see all types of things like that, Rob. You have that. You have stories of, failed banks who end up having the government cover a lot of their losses from the, from the downturn in the market. But the bank still has a right. The new bank who acquires the old bank has a right to seek a deficiency judgment from a homeowner. So, as they're double dipping, the bank has recovered money from the government, and then they're going back and recovering it again from the homeowner. You see a lot of things out there that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's very strange. But again, I think it goes back to there are defenses, right? And there are things you can do rather than just cowering down and saying, well, okay, I'll start paying you $100 a month or $200 a month. And, it just seems like giving up too easy to me.
It is. Let me tell you a situation that I see happen a lot. Everybody has a stigma with foreclosure, and it's something that no one wants to go through, but good people have bad luck. And I've represented a lot of families who, because of a job, the market goes down. So people start getting laid off from work. They lose their job, they lose their income, get in a bad way, and have to go through a foreclosure. After the foreclosure, the market gets going again like it has, or they find a job that replaces their income. Now the bank, a couple of years later, is now seeking this deficiency. They come in and they ask me what their rights are. What can they do? And if we can't, let's say the bank's already gotten the deficiency. Now it's a collection matter. Unfortunately, bankruptcy may not be an option because they're doing well again. When you make too much money, it's hard to qualify under a Chapter 7. You have to satisfy what's called the means test. So now someone who went through some really bad luck, worked their way through it, did all the right things to get back on their feet, may not have some of the options that would have been available had they, sat down with us, got proper advice. Because what I would have told them is, you have this short window. This short window is going to allow you to either file bankruptcy or negotiate now. Banks aren't willing to negotiate, or bankruptcy may not be an option when you're making a good living.
Wow. So this whole deficiency judgment just starts another terrible part in somebody's life. They think it's all been behind them and everything's fine. But again, we need to point out and clarify that this may not be B of A or Sunbank NA or whoever contacting you. It's not necessarily the company that you had all these negotiations with over the past several years.
Right.
It may be the other names that are entering into this.
It may be a company that went out and bought a couple of thousand failed mortgages, and now they're trying to pursue a deficiency judgment. They're trying to, use it as an investment platform to make money. They're buying your mortgage or your bad note at 10, 20 cents on the dollar, and they have a right to pursue you for 100% of what was owed.
Are there things that people can pursue, like, all right, if you bought this, Dick O'Neill, let's just use him as an example, not coming down on their company. Everybody's got a right to make a living. But do they have all the proper documentation that they need to pursue this?
And that's one of the things that we raise as a defense. Do you have all the procedural things necessary to bring this lawsuit? And are you the right party to bring this lawsuit? There has just been a federal court case filed recently in the last couple of weeks by a law firm. They're trying to bring a class action suit based on what I was talking about earlier. Is Dick O'Neill the right party to bring a suit against out-of-state homeowners who lost their house, say, in Florida?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see a lot more federal lawsuits filed under the Fair Debt Practices Act saying that what that group in particular is doing isn't right.
Goodness gracious me. At this point, let me give you the law firm's number, because this is probably one of the first days that you're hearing anything about this. This isn't something that's popped up on the news recently. There's been too much coverage of everything else going on. And believe me, this week you're going to be hearing about Tropical Storm, you're hearing about the earthquake, still going to be hearing after the aftermath of Ferguson. So, I mean, this thing is going to be way down there on page 11 somewhere. But if you're going to be affected, you need to put it on your page 1. So did you go through, and kind of correct me if I'm wrong here, Wade, but if you went through a short sale, went through a modification, went through a foreclosure, went through a deed in lieu, went through just walked away and said to hell with it,
right?
You need to know what's going on.
Absolutely. We've been talking mostly about deficiency judgments, but what a lot of homeowners did is, after they bought their house, they went out and built a beautiful pool in their backyard by taking out a HELOC or a second mortgage, and they walked away from their home, and they haven't heard from their first mortgage lender. But there's still that second mortgage lender out there who also has a right not to foreclose, but to sue on the promissory note and get a judgment against you.
All right, we'll give the details on those home equity lines of credit or things that you might have taken out of as a secondary lien on your home, which you thought you walked away from that too. Well, maybe you didn't. All right, we're going to come back and talk about that, and you're probably saying, Rob, don't pour more fuel on the fire. Just trying to keep you informed, folks. Here it is, Law 2020, 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696. I'll give you contact information on the BCN Law Firm when we come back right here on News 96.5. We are back, yes indeed, and Wade Boyette is with us from the BCN Law Firm. You hear their jingle on the radio all the time, 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020, and you can call us right now at 855-297-9696, talking about deficiencies, talking about short sales, modifications, talking about that there's new action out there, people trying to follow up and get that money that's you didn't think you owed, or maybe you thought it had been forgotten about. Well, that be something nice to think about. Nick, we welcome you to the show. What's going on here?
Yeah, hi. I am going to a short sale, and very soon there's going to be a closing. I wanted to know what is the language I should look into the closing document which says that they are not going to come after me for the deficiency.
Yeah, Nick, they're gonna ask you to sign a short sale approval letter. And inside that short sale approval letter, you need to see the words paid in full and will not seek a deficiency. A lot of times clients will sign the approval letter and it's ambiguous. And, I hate seeing the ambiguity. It leaves the room open for the bank to sue for a deficiency. So make sure it's very clear that they are waiving the deficiency in the short sale approval letter.
Okay, Nick, thank you for that. Now, before we get to your call, I do want to mention that Wade is being kind enough to say that you can sit down free for a few minutes. All you got to do is call the law firm and make an appointment. But if you're listening to today's show and you've been through any of the things we've been talking about in the past, and you're worried about getting that summons, about getting that publication notice, that you are being sued for deficiency, please, so you can get peace of mind, just set an appointment over the next week or so to go into the law firm and sit down. There's no obligation. They're not asking you to sign up for anything. They just want to kind of give you some free advice on the beginning, initial visit to kind of take the burden off your mind. Right, Wade?
That is correct.
Very cool. Okay, Moira, how are you today, and what's going on in your life?
Yeah, hello. I am going through a modification. GMAC sold it to Auckland. Thursday, August 14th at 4 o'clock, my counselor from Auckland called me and told me all of my documents were in. And a couple of days later, I get a letter dated 8/14/2014 saying that I have to send a copy of following missing additional documents. Please send a copy of your completed and fully executed hardship affidavit. Now, when I talked to Tina on the 14th of August at 4 o'clock p.m., she said everything is done, over and done with, that I should be hearing something within 30 days for the modification through Auckland on behalf of GMAC. I don't get it.
Yeah, Mara, welcome to the modification world. It's sometimes really confusing and very tiring because, that's not uncommon for the banks to continue to request documents. It seems to me, though, that the last conversation you had twice was that all the paperwork was in. I would wait and see if you receive another letter saying that paperwork's deficient. If not, there's no reason to send them anything else in. Let's wait and see during the next 30 days or after the, whatever time's expiring, if they give you the modification that you're looking for.
Okay.
This is always a very frustrating process, is it not, Wade?
It's frustrating, and not only is it frustrating on you, Mara, we do a lot of modification work also, and they request the same thing over and over from us. It does get very frustrating, but hang in there. At the end of the day, usually the clients end up getting some, satisfaction. It's just you have to have the patience of Job. It's tough.
Okay, Sharon, we've only got about 3 minutes to spend together. And Moira, Sharon, if any of the callers, any of the listeners, please call the law firm this week at 855-LAW-2020 or 352-394-2103. Now, Sharon, how can we help you? We've only got about 2.5 minutes, so we got to use it wisely.
Okay, I just tuned in, so I don't know some of what you're talking about, but I did have a modification of my first and second mortgages, I'm not sure, 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm not sure what kind of deficiency would I be worried about.
Well, first, Sharon, have you been foreclosed? Has a foreclosure proceeding started?
No, I just had modification.
Okay, so you're going through the modification process, or you have been modified?
I have been modified several years ago.
Okay, and
second both.
Are you current on your mortgage payments?
Yes, sir.
And are you going to continue to be current on your mortgage payments?
Yes.
Then you should be fine. They should not be able to seek. As long as you're current on your mortgage payments, a deficiency happens after you've been foreclosed on. So you should be fine.
Okay, great.
But if you have any questions, give me a call.
You've got a great rest of the day now, Sharon. You can take a deep breath and just, if you go outside, stay hydrated, okay? 855-LAW-2020 if you want to call the law firm this week, 855-LAW-2020 or 352-394-2103, Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and a brand new office opens up at 9 o'clock in the morning in the Villages. So, let's kind of go back to the very beginning for people that are just joining us and remind people what's going on. The company name that they may be hearing from, or the law firm they may be hearing from.
Yeah, that you may be hearing from someone who's not the person who actually loaned you the money, who wasn't the mortgage company that had the security interest and mortgage on your home. It may be a collection company or a law firm that's suing on behalf of the collection company. But if you receive any legal paperwork, if you receive any type of documents regarding a potential deficiency judgment, please give us a call. And Rob, one more thing. I'm going to be at the Villages office in the morning. I would love for any of the listeners who are up in the village, stop by, come and see us. We would love
what's
to
the
see
address on 466? Do you have that on top of your head?
It's
there?
the Santa Fe building, right at Morris Boulevard and 466. And, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be there pretty much every day for the next 2 or 3 months, getting the office going, and would love to have people come up and see us. And have time, let's go to lunch. Let's sit down and talk. Give me some ideas of how to grow the practice up in that area.
All right, very good. So a new office there opening 9 o'clock in the morning in the Villages. You also have Winter Park, Claremont, and Lakeland as offices for the BCN Law Firm. I'll give you their number one more time, actually 2 numbers, 352-394-2103. That's 352-394-2103. 855-LAW-2020 is another great number for them. And don't forget, BCNlawfirm.com, bcnlawfirm.com, and we want you to see you tomorrow at the opening of their new offices. Drop by, say hi to Wade Boyette and company. We'll see you later right here on News 96.5.